It's my second day in Vegas, and while the first night didn't go as I had hoped, there's still plenty of time left to turn things around in this trip. We went over to see the Bellagio, which is gorgeous. I saw the poker room, and it got me really excited to come back later tonight and play. We went over to the high roller suite to sit down and have a drink. Really cool atmosphere. Afterwards, we walked over to the Cosmopolitan, a beautiful resort. Very modern and very expensive. I got hooked on video blackjack, roulette, and craps. I played for hours and left pretty close to even. Took the tram back over to Park MGM to shower and get ready for our dinner at Bavette Steakhouse. Got to do a quick check in the mirror before we walk out the door. Looks pretty good. We went downstairs to head to the steakhouse, and we got preferred seating in this private bar area, which was really cool. I opted to go with the skirt steak this time. I always do fillets when I go to steakhouses, and so I wanted to do something a little bit different. Dinner was delicious. Everything was great from top to bottom. The resort messed up, and I had booked a king bed room, and they gave me a 2-queen bed room. So to make up for it, they gave me a $100 meal credit, and I used $99.30 to enjoy this really nice dinner. But enough around. It's time to go to Bellagio and play the 2-5, the game I've been waiting for. Okay, done screwing around playing these video games. I called ahead. I got on the list over at Bellagio. I'm on the 1-3 and the 2-5. I'm going to play whatever they call first, so let's see how that goes. In the first hand of the night, we're under the gun and we look down at Ace-Jack offsuit. I open the action for $15. Both blinds make the call, so we're 3 ways to our first flop at Bellagio. The flop is Jack-10-4 Rainbow, so we flop top pair. It checks over to me and I continue for $25. However, they both fold, and we win our first hand at 2-5 at the Bellagio. I hope Brad Owen's proud. We're on the button when we look down at Queen Jack of Hearts. Despite my hand being in the way, we see an early position raised to $15 and a call from the cutoff. On me, and I'm happy to call and play in position, the blinds fold, so we're 3 ways to the flop. The flop is Queen 8-4 with 2 clubs, so I flop top pair. The low jack leads right out for $30. Guy seems pretty smart, he's a little bit aggressive, but a thinking player. As the pre-flop raiser, when he bets here, I think he's betting a lot of his range, so when the cutoff folds, I'm happy to call. We're heads up to the turn. The turn is a 10 of diamonds, and the low jack does not slow down. He bets $115. I'm a little worried it's ace-queen or king-queen, but with top pair and draws available, I think my hand's just too strong to fold. Then I remember he just won a hand with a set where he checked all 3 streets, adding a check raise on the river, so I think he's weighted way more to bluffs or draws in this spot. I consider a raise, but at the same time, I don't want to fold out any of those hands, so I just make the call. We're off to the river. The river's a 5 of hearts, and now my opponent slows down and checks. This is great news. I now doubt he even has a queen. I have what I believe to be less than a pot-sized bet behind, so I rip it. I fade the snap call, which is great. I won't lie, my heart's pounding. He gives it a good amount of thought, but he eventually folds and we win. We're in the big blind and we look down at king-queen offsuit. The low jack, the button, and the small blind all call. This is a great spot to squeeze. I bump it up to $30. One by one, they all fold. I featured this hand because there were a lot of hands like this tonight where I would either 3-bet pre-flop or I'd take it down right after the flop, and these tiny little pots will add up. One thing I am not used to is the free drinks while playing. We've been drinking all day, and I'm starting to see double here, so good luck me. We're under the gun and we look down at 6-7 offsuit. Forgetting it's a 2-5 game, I open for $10. Oops. It folds to the cutoff, who, to no surprise, puts in a raise to $30. It folds back to me, and I'm going to go ahead and call and play out of position, see if I can get lucky here. The flop is 9-8-5. Huh, got kind of lucky. I start with a check, and I'm disappointed to see my opponent check behind. The turn is a 3 of spades. I don't want to check again and risk him checking it back, so I bet $25. He doesn't think too long and he calls, so we'll see a river. The river is a 3 of clubs, and I'm not necessarily crazy about the board pair, but it's probably not a bad card. I want to put out a size that can get looked up by something like an overpair, and I settle on $110. My opponent goes into the tank. The longer he's thinking, the more I'm begging for a call. He eventually does make the call. I roll it over, and he looks perplexed. This game's easy when you flop the nuts. One thing other vloggers have never mentioned on their channel is how loud the music is in the room. I guess there's some Bruno Mars club around the corner and it is shaking the walls in here. I have earbuds in, and without noise cancellation, I can barely hear any of my music. I cannot imagine how loud it actually is in that club. Help me out, maybe I'm an old man. Is that even enjoyable? This hand was kind of weird. We're on the button and we look down at Queen Jack offsuit. There were 2 early position limps before it gets to me, and I bump it up to $25. We see the small blind flat, and the under the gun comes along as well, so we're 3 ways to the flop. The flop is Queen 8-7, so I flop top pair. Under the gun leads out for $50. At this moment, the small blind very blatantly bumps my leg. I honestly think he's trying to tell me he has a monster here. He does not like the player in early position. But how do you fold top pair? I decide to go ahead and make the call, and I'm immediately punished when the small blind jams for $113. Early position now gets out of the way, and I mean, this sucks. He gave me an out, and I didn't take it, but what can I do? It's only $63 more, so I call.
Oh, fuck yeah, you are ahead.
The turn's a 10 of hearts, so I picked up a gut shot, and the river is a 10 of spades. My opponent has pocket queens, so he really did try to tell me. We're in the hijack, and we look down at 7-9 of clubs. We see under the gun limp before it folds to me, and I make it $15. Under the gun is my only caller, so we're heads up. The flop is Jack 9-9, so we flop trips. He checks it over to me, and I continue for another $15. I'm happy to see my opponent make the call, and so we'll see the turn. The turn is a 2 of hearts, so it brings in the front door flush. He checks, and with this flush coming in, I decide to slow down and just check behind. The river is a 5 of diamonds, and now my opponent leads out for $25. I just don't think it's a flush. I don't know, call it a hunch. I end up making the call, and I win when my opponent flips over king-queen offsuit. Something I did in the lead up to this Vegas trip was played very passively, especially on the live stream, and I wanted to try to correct that while I was out here. And this is an example of how I did so. I'm in the small blind, I look down at 8-9 of spades. We see one limp before it folds to the button, who raises to $20. The button seems like a smart guy, and when he raises, this is a position raise 100% of the time. And so I'm going to pounce and put some pressure on him, and I re-raise to $65. It folds back over to the button, who thinks a bit, but he ends up making the fold. We're in the under the gun straddle, and we look down at ace-10 offsuit. We see an early position player raise to $30. It folds all the way over to me, and I'll give him some action. We're heads up to the flop. The flop is 8-7 deuce rainbow, so I have 2 overs. I check, and I'm happy to see my opponent check behind. The turn is a king of spades, so it hasn't improved my hand. Once again, the action will check through. The river is a 10 of hearts, so now I've made a pair, and given how passive he's been, I actually think it's good. So I'm going to bet, and I make it $30. Aggression wins me another pot as my opponent folds. We're in the big blind, and we look down at ace-5 offsuit. We see under the gun limp before it folds all the way to the small blind, who completes. I'll check, we're heads up. The flop is 8-4-3 rainbow, so we flop a bad top pair. The small blind leads out for $15. With top pair, I'm happy to call, and under the gun comes along as well, so we're 3 ways to the turn. The turn is a 7 of hearts, so it's really starting to connect this board. The small blind slows down and checks. In the middle of 2 people, I'm going to go ahead and check, and under the gun checks behind. The river is a 4 of diamonds, and the small blind checks again. I still have top pair, and so I'm going to try to get some value, and I fire for $40, but they both fold before I can even get the bet out. We're on the button, and we look down at King Jack offsuit. We see under the gun open for $15, and while I respect his range, he's been hyper aggressive. When it folds over to me, I'm going to test that under the gun range, and I 3-bet to $60. It folds back over to my opponent under the gun, and he gives it a good 40 seconds of thought before re-raising to $225. Okay, so that was a terrible plan. At worst, it's ace-5 suited, but it's probably way better than that, so I'm going to have to let this one go. We're in +1, and we look down at 6-9 of spades. We see a limp from under the gun, and I'm trying to play suited gappers more, and while +1 may be the wrong place to do it, this table's calmed a little bit, so I bump it up to $15. Both blinds and under the gun call, so we're 4 ways, but somehow I'm in position. The flop is king 9-4 with 2 clubs, so I flop middle pair. It checks over to me, and if I'm going to open a speculative hand and hit the flop, I'm going to bet. I make it $30. It folds over to the big blind who calls, as does under the gun, so now we're 3 ways to the flop. The turn is a 9 of diamonds, so we've turned trips. Both players check again, and with a flush draw out there, I don't think I can check, so I fire for $85. All kings and all clubs are going to have to pay. The big blind gives it some good thought before eventually making the fold. It's back over to under the gun, and then he check raises to $250. Okay, I did not see that coming. I really don't know what to do here. He's got about 270 behind. If I jam, I give him a chance to fold his draws, and if he calls, then I'm probably way behind with a really bad 9. This is a really weird spot, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to call and evaluate the river. So I make the call, we'll see the river. The river's the ace of diamonds, and I'm not really sure if this is a good card or not. Seems pretty good, though, when he jams for 273. I mean, if you have a better 9, congrats, you're going to get my money. This is a make or break hand for me, and I toss in the call. He immediately tells me good call and shows 10-7 of clubs for a busted flush draw, and we win a big, big pot. In the final hand of the night, we're in the cutoff with ace-queen offsuit. It folds all the way over to me. I'm going to open for $15. The button is the only caller, so we're heads up. The flop is ace-queen 6 with 2 hearts, so I flop top 2. Out of position, I start with a check, and my opponent pretty quickly checks behind. The turn is a 7 of spades, so now it brings in a second flush draw. If he's not going to voluntarily put money in, I'll make him. I bet $20. The button very quickly calls, and he tells me to be careful. We'll see a river. The river is a 5 of clubs, so 3, 4, and 8, 9 both get there. Since he feels so confident, it's time to charge him for his hand. I make it $85. I guess when both draws miss, I should probably be checking to allow him to bluff at it, but suddenly my opponent gets really quiet. He tells me he missed the straight and the flush draw and rolls over 9-10 of hearts, so he wasn't lying, but we win this one. And that's it. I can't do it anymore. It's 2:20 in the morning. I've been up for 18 hours on 6 hours of sleep, and I've drank like 50 beers tonight. Poker-wise, I feel fine. In fact, I feel locked in. But taking notes and managing footage, it's just too much. I've run this stack up to about $1,275, and I think it makes a great ending for a great session, but I'm not quite done playing yet. I did win a big pot when I 3-bet queen jack of hearts out of the small blind and flopped a flush. I got 3 streets of value, including a $120 river bet to get my stack up over $1,400. As 3:30 in the morning approaches, I decided to rack up and stumble out to get an Uber and call it a night. We were into the game for $500, out for $1,465, so a win of $965 spread out over about 3.5 hours. If you enjoy, like, subscribe. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.